So it's a lovely day today, and we've just been down on the allotment shoveling and barrowing about a couple of tons of wood chips onto the paths, and they're looking nice now. This is the way I like to work: short bursts of intensive effort with lots of relaxation in between. And wood chips on the paths is a nice way in winter just to warm yourself up, get a bit of sunshine, while stopping the weeds growing all the way through summer. Anyway, I am now sorting out my seeds. So I've pulled up my seed sowing database on the iPad, and it does work really nice on the iPad. It's just the nicest way to browse through what I'm planning to do this month. And I've actually bought a few things slightly earlier than I'd originally planned them, just because I've got space now under the grow light, so I might as well get some things started, because I've moved quite a lot of things into the conservatory, in particular some of my baby sprouts and collect plants, and they're looking really nice now. And in fact, I'll be planting those out in a few days' time. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to do these Paris silver skin onions, Red Baron, Smacadulce broad beans, just to fill in any gaps that open up over the next month or so. And then I'm going to do some lettuces, and I'm going to pull these forward a little bit, not just because I've got space, but because we are having a lot of very frosty weather, and I'm slightly cautious that I might lose some of my overwintered lettuces, so I want a nice batch to replace those in February, just in case. So I'm going to put some Grenoble Red in, some Smile Oak Leaf, some Canasta, and some Bijou. And that's all I'm going to do today. So yeah, I've got my seeds all there. And the way I do my seeds is that they're all in a box, just in numerical order. And when a new seed packet arrives, I just give it the next number, log it on my phone, and it appears in my seed packet database like this. And obviously that's just filtered. Get rid of that filter so you can see everything. Yeah, so there we go on my seed packet database. So there's all the seeds, and then the way I do my labels is I just write the variety name. Generally I can remember what it is, so I don't put Canasta lettuce, just put Canasta. This is batch number 35, so that's from the sowing log, and then the date, and then on the back the seed packet number. I don't actually log the seed packet number in the database, because I find that 97% or something of the seed packets are just fine, and it's so rare that I get a bad batch that I don't really worry about it. All I do is just put it on the back here, just in case there's an issue, and I've got nothing else to use the back of the label for. So yeah, I'm going to get on with sowing. So when I'm doing my lettuces at this time of year, I like to prick them out, and so I'll just sow them into each of these modules, a different variety in each module. I really like doing that. And these are some spares that I had left over, which I've just left, but that's basically what they look like, and obviously we'll prick them out when they're quite a bit smaller than those. So when I'm sowing lettuce, I don't take any care really. It doesn't really matter. Lettuce is just going to germinate no matter what, so don't really worry about it. And I've put in some spinach beet and some Larini lettuce as well, and that's because I just hate having these spares. And so I'm fortunate enough really, I just bung all my old seeds that I've no more use for, because they're past the sell by, and I just stick them in here, and then I just use them to fill any spare gaps basically, and see what happens. This doesn't need any particular heat to germinate, doesn't need a propagator or anything like that. I will just put it in the dining room it's not that warm in there. It's about 70 degrees, something like that. And that is more than warm enough for lettuce to germinate. Again, doesn't need any heat nighttime or daytime. And now I know some people will cringe when they see the way I do onions, but basically I want to do 5 seeds per module, 200 seeds in this packet, 40 cell tray, hoping for 3 or 4 seeds to germinate, and then they'll stay in these modules. They won't be pricked out, they won't be potted on, nothing will happen to them. They'll just stay in these modules until they get planted out in the ground, and they'll go out sort of, I don't know, middle March, early April, something like that. Just depends on the growth rate of them. But as soon as they've got good enough roots to come out of the modules nice and clean, and the plants are, I don't know, 6 inches tall or something like that, then they'll go out, and I'll put them out under a bit of fleece, and I plant them really intensively. And what I'm hoping for is a very large number of medium-sized onions. I will get a few small onions, that's no problem. We'll pickle those or use them in salads or chop them up and use those for freezing. And basically that's it. We grow a lot of onions in a very small space. As I say, I don't fuss with them at all. Don't do anything special. This is just ordinary potted seed sowing compost. There's nothing mixed into it or anything like that. They just seem to do really well for me. So I don't actually count the number of onions that I put in. I just do it by a pinch. And over the years I've sort of got myself conditioned so that I know roughly how big a pinch of 5 seeds is and how big a pinch of 9 seeds is. That's the density I do spring onions. And if I find that there's more than 4 seeds germinated in here, then I will thin them out. But hopefully there'll be just three or 4, which is fine. I'll just leave those as they are then. And then that tray will do about 1 square metre, so about 200 onions per square metre in well-prepared soil. And that, as I said, is very high density. But if you want a lot of medium onions, it's great, because these onions are going to be in these module trays for a long time. They need a lot of compost in the modules, so I give it a good push down with my fingers to make sure there's plenty in there. The last thing I want is for them to run out of nutrients. And I may well water them with a dilute feed, and something like a fish and seaweed emulsion or something like that in about March time, perhaps. Very dilute, just enough just to keep them going until planting time. So those are the Paris Silver Skin, 800 seeds in that packet. So I've only used, well, less than a quarter probably of that packet. I've done about 5 seeds in each one of these as well. Again, aiming for 3 or 4 to germinate. Same story as the Red Baron. Now, if I'm doing something like Bedfordshire Champion or Ailsa Craig, then I'll probably do 3 seeds per module for those, aiming for 2 seeds to germinate. So they're a bit bigger onion than these. We do have a bit of a mix, just a few of the larger onions, but most of it we're aiming for these smaller ones, or medium-sized ones rather. Levington's professional seed sowing compost. It's very fine. I don't need to sieve it or anything like that. I just wipe it over with my hands, and there we go, all done. My broad beans now, but before we leave onions, I should just say that they need even less heat than the lettuces, so definitely no supplemental heat. I'm just going to put those in a cold bedroom, about 15, 16, 17 degrees, something like that. 15 degrees at night, 17 degrees during the day. That is fine for them. They don't need to go in a propagator or anything else like that. They like it cool. So I'm doing the broad beans now, just 1 per module. It's a 12 cell tray, half tray. I just push them in to the compost, about 1 inch down. Like that. the vast majority of the broad beans that we do, we plant direct in the ground, but you always lose a few, or they fail to germinate. We've actually been having a few mice digging a few of them up and eating them, but anyway, that will do. That's enough spares. There's the broad beans. They don't mind a little bit of heat. They definitely don't need it, but since I've got space free in the lettuce tray, that's where I'll put them, on the windowsill in the dining room. So I've changed my mind and I'm going to do some sugar snap peas and some Oregon sugar pods. I'm going to do 2 of these 12 cell trays. I'm going to put 2 peas in each tray, and these are going to go in one of my low tunnels actually in, well, mid-February I should think. So I just push peas in. Again, I don't bother too much about the depth, as long as they're about 1 inch, something like that. I don't bother about spacing them. There's plenty of space in these modules for 2 peas. You could get a lot more in than 2, but I don't need any more because this is the number that I need for the low tunnel that I'm going to put them in. Well, this is half the number that I need because I'm going to put some Oregon sugar pods in as well. And peas don't mind the cold, so they should be quite happy going out. Sorry, I can't hold this camera very well at the same time as poking peas in. Yeah, they don't mind the cold, but they definitely don't like the wind and the heavy rain and the hail and the snow of February. So a low tunnel is just the perfect protection. And although I say it's a low tunnel, it actually is reasonably high. So these won't outgrow it until probably April time, and we'll be harvesting them towards the end of May. When you're deciding where to grow your early peas, I do recommend that you grow them outside in a low tunnel where you can remove the low tunnel top, because these will get too hot, I think, in a polytunnel. I've grown them in polytunnel before, and they just don't like the conditions in May and June, which is obviously the harvest period. And so they're much happier when you take the polytunnel, the low tunnel top off in late April, early May. As I say, they won't mind a bit of frost, and by then it's really nice and sunny, and it's just getting too hot for them. So yeah, that's the way I do them. As I say, I've tried them in the ground, in the polytunnel, in containers in the polytunnel. It's just too warm for them. They'll survive and they will give you a harvest, but they just, in my experience, they won't give you as good a harvest as they would outside. They are kind of a cool weather plant, really. So this is my earliest sowing. I don't bother sowing over winter. I find sowing now is just fine. You get the harvest at exactly the same time as you would if you sowed them over winter. So when I'm watering, I'm always top watering. I don't need a huge amount for these because they're only going to be in here for a week to 10 days. And I'll continue top watering until the plants are quite big. Certainly until these are all pricked out and everything. I'll never bottom water until the plant is maybe a week or 2 weeks away from being planted out. I've also planted my first peppers, and they are just in this little Cheapest Chips free grow light that came with Grow Your Own magazine. And I covered over with that. I do have a little thermometer in there that's monitoring the temperature, and basically there's no thermostat on this propagator, it just keeps the temperature about 10 degrees above ambient, and ambient in here is about 70 degrees, so it's about 80 degrees, which is about perfect for peppers. So hopefully in about a week's time they should be up. And I do my peppers a mix of earlies and lates, so I do some early ones like this, just a few for an early harvest, and then I'll do another batch in February and then another batch in March. I basically want a nice continuous harvest period, and I just do not want too many massive plants in April and May that I've got nowhere to put them. And there's my first potato, just broken surface. But don't sow your potatoes now. I'm just doing this just for a special test. Anyway, I'll talk about that on another video. So, hope you like this quick video. My name's Steve, this is the Seaside Allotment channel, and I'll see you soon.